I'm Avnita, and this is Nikita, and we are seniors from Berlin, and we are doing a hosted project centered on academic stress and how it affects students.
Okay.
So we wanted to get more information on your background and have some experience from a mental health professional to add that to our social media project and hopefully get more allow more exposure to the field so that our peers can watch and see like from a real mental health professional rather than just me and Nikita.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so our first question is, can you tell us about your journey into mental health and what inspired you to become a therapist?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I have been in the field for, gosh, I don't know, almost probably about 18 years now. And I knew I wanted to do counseling of some sort ever since I was younger. I went into undergrad as a psychology major and then got my master's in social work. Um, and have spent most of my time has been spent in education. So I worked in schools for a lot, in different settings in schools for a lot of my career. When I first got out of grad school, I was not in education, but was a counselor in like a residential program for kids, working with kids who were placed outside of their home. Um, and then I went into the school system. So I've been in alternative education, so working with high school students. All of my career really has been with high school students for the most part. Um, so working with high school students who maybe the big school setting just didn't fit for them for one reason or another, and they would come to our program, and I was the counselor or social worker in that program. And then also worked in Olentangy for a little bit, and now I have my own private practice. So I've just kind of been all over the place. Right now, decided to take a step out of education just to do really just some good like one-on-one therapy work. So there's a lot in education that goes into the world of mental health when you're in schools. And so I really wanted just to take some time to focus on doing therapy. And that has been, I've really enjoyed that piece of it, just being able to focus on whatever the client comes in for, whatever mental health needs they might have. But really, it has been, I knew I wanted to work with people. And I think teenagers then was kind of my next. I love that high school age because I think there's a lot, you guys are all going through this time of transition as far as like still being a kid and living at home, but then soon to be out on your own. And there's all kinds of things coming out at you with, living the life with cell phones and social media and all of that. And I think, and I've seen just an increase in anxiety and depression among adolescents. And so being able to work with teens has been really my focus and what I've loved to do for years now. So,
Yeah, I love that.
Great, yeah. Kind of adding on to your work with teens, what like specific mental health challenges do you most commonly see in them? I know you said like depression and anxiety, but are there like any specific ones that you've seen?
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think anxiety is really high among teenagers right now. So, I would say that's probably one of the primary things that I'm seeing with teenagers is just heightened anxiety around everything that's going on in their lives. So, with everything that you have as far as school and extracurriculars and all of these things are coming at you, and then also trying to figure out your social life and what does this look like and I think the added stress of the constant like having social media, that's one thing that I feel like I have heard from numerous teens is like, I wish I could get off of this, but all my friends are on it. So I don't, I feel like it's my only way to communicate. And then I think there's just a lot with the demands that you guys, you have, whether that's internal or external, there's a lot that's coming at you as far as wanting to do well in school and feeling like I have these, achievements, things that I'm working towards after graduation. And so I really think I was starting to see it, especially in schools, even, freshman year, I was having kids come in with like, I need to be taking AP classes or I need to have all of these things that are going on. And now in my private practice, that hasn't changed as far as I think the anxiety just is really, really heightened. And I think teens, what I would call maybe their ability to stress tolerance, feeling like I don't necessarily know what to do with the stress and anxiety. The tolerance is not very high. And so I feel like a lot of my work has been around like how do we teach some of those distress tolerance skills so that you feel like, you can meet the goals that you want and still feel like my mental health is in an okay place.
Yeah. I've also like personally experienced academic stress, and I'm sure like a bunch of students my age, like high school, middle school, like we've all experienced it. So like our project was like centered on like giving tips and like ways to like cope with it, just like how you tell your clients to do. We were wondering, sorry.
No,
Um, like to the best of your knowledge, what are like the biggest causes, like the main causes of academic stress in students right now?
hmm. I feel like that's tricky. It's tricky to answer that because I do think I would say it depends. I think sometimes kids feel like I notice that sometimes teenagers feel like, well, all my friends are doing this, and so this is like whether that started in, middle school and transitioned into high school, like I noticed that all my friends are taking these honors classes. And then once you get into high school, it even becomes more than that. I notice they're taking AP classes. And so then I'm feeling like I need to be there too. I need to be doing the same things that they're doing. Or it can also be just feeling like, and I don't think anyone is intentionally putting on that stress, but just feeling like, I have these expectations for myself. I really need to be productive and I want to feel like am meeting these goals that I've set for myself. I think there's also that feeling of, well, colleges want X, Y, and Z. And so what does that mean if I'm going to get into college and I have to do not only well academically, but then I need to be involved in clubs and I need to have all these extracurriculars and maybe I need to have a job. And that's a lot of pressure. And so then I think what happens is it becomes so overwhelming that then it feels like, okay, my nervous system is in a constant state of arousal because I'm just heightened all the time. My anxiety gets really high because I have all of these other things. So I don't know that there's necessarily one thing. And I think it really is dependent on the student. Because again, I think sometimes it can be that internal, like, motivators that are good, but then also that can sometimes becomes too much because maybe I'm not meeting those internal expectations that I put on myself. It could also be feeling like, well, unintentionally, like the school, it feels like, okay, well, the school, everyone's doing it, so then we all need to be doing it. Or, sometimes it even feels like I think many times I talk to parents who say like we're really trying not to put that pressure on our kids. Um, but then it still feels like, well, I want to do well for my parents. So I think it can be a lot of different things. I don't think there's one specific answer to that.
Mhm.
What would you say are some like realistic coping strategies to do with that specifically, like the pressure and like the like pressure to succeed academically now today?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing is just to first just acknowledge it. Sometimes it's like it's okay to just say it out loud, like I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And so sometimes I think teenagers are getting better at that because there's more of an awareness of mental health. I think you guys have, which is great. I think more and more teens are like saying like I am noticing that this is happening. Um, but I think it's really good to be able to just like verbalize, this is how I'm feeling. And then, being able to intentionally create space for things that you enjoy doing. So, um, you know, we might label it self-care. We might label it just something that you are saying, like, I'm going to look at my schedule and say, where can I make space for doing something that is apart from school or apart from a club or apart from these things that I feel like I have to do, but it's something that I'm really gonna find enjoyment in. Um, Decreasing screen time, I think, is really important. So really being able to take note of like how much time am I actually on my phone? And not that all social media is, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, social media is bad because I think there's a lot of good things that come from it. But I also think it's good to be able to take an honest review of like, is this helping me right now, or is it something that maybe is hindering me? Because there are times where it might be something that is, well, now I'm like seeing all this social media and I'm feeling like, okay, now there's even more pressure to do X, Y, and Z. And so, really being able to take a step back and say, I need to take a break from my phone. We all need to do that. It's not just you guys. Us adults need to do that too. So it's like really being intentional about saying, I'm going to actually just put my phone away and know that like it's okay. I can come back to it in 45 minutes to an hour and I'm not going to miss anything. Like it will be okay. Um, Sleep, that's another thing that I think is really important. It's one of the first things I ask all my clients and all my students when I was working in schools is like, how much sleep are you getting? Because you guys don't sleep a lot. So I think it is, it's so important. Sleep affects so much. It has such a direct correlation with our mental health. And so if you are not getting a good, I would say teenagers really need that like 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And I think, I know school starts really early, so that's hard to do. Um, but it will impact our emotions. It impacts all of the things that, when I have someone maybe come into my office and say like, oh my gosh, this week I just was feeling like everything was really heightened for me. That's going to be the first thing that I ask is like, okay, well, how was your sleep? I think, distress tolerance skills. I think if your anxiety is feeling really heightened, so if you would say like, anxiety on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm feeling like I am so anxious that I'm maybe at a 6 or higher, then it's really trying to find like how do I bring that down? Like you're not going to necessarily get it to a 0, but how do I bring it down to like a 4, maybe a 4? Like can I go do something like read a book? Can I do something like get outside and take a walk? Something that might distract you a little bit. And just I think being aware of like it's okay to take a break and then come back to it at another time. Um, and then just talking about it, like finding a trusted adult. It's great that like I think it's so wonderful that, talk to your friends, but also be aware of like when maybe you need to find someone else to be able to say, I need to find an adult that I need to talk to about this. And find that trusted person, whether that's at school or whether that's a parent or whoever it is, to be able to just share, like, this is kind of what's going on, and this is what I'm noticing with my mental health right now.
Yeah. So the three like main protective factors that we highlighted was sleep, peer teacher support, and effective study habits, which you touched base on like basically all of them. So that's good that we're like putting out the right information.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know like what like long-term effects can unmanaged stress have?
Oh, yeah. Well, so I don't know that I mean, I can give you things that I have, seen. I think the research, I'm sure you guys have done your research to actually see like what does the research say about all of it. But I think truly there's a lot that can happen physically with our health when you look at just chronic stress over time and looking at even long-term heart disease and different things that can happen long-term with our physical health. um, Chronic stress can have a great impact on that. And then as well, obviously, as well as our mental health, like leading to higher rates of anxiety and depression. And, I think unfortunately, then, there's even sometimes risk of self-harm and different things like that. So being able to just be aware of like, what is this? We all feel anxious. So that's the other thing I want to make sure I say is like anxiety is normal. So, we it's being able to normalize that like anxiety our brains our amygdala fires when we feel anxious, when we're supposed to feel anxious. That's how the human body was designed, was to be able to say like, okay, your amygdala's firing because you're in danger. But what has happened over time is that our amygdala fires all the time because of we are in heightened states of stress often, and so then in times where we're not actually in danger, we are feeling like we are. And so I think it is important to know like you will feel anxious sometimes. If you have a big test that you're studying for, if you have a presentation that you have to give, if you have a job interview, like those are things that I would say it's normal to feel a little bit of anxiety before that. So, some of that being able to acknowledge, okay, some anxiety is normal, but it's that chronic state of like, I'm heightened all the time. So, I feel like I am on a given day, I'm feeling at a 5 or higher on that scale. Even if there's things that maybe I shouldn't necessarily be feeling, or, that shouldn't necessarily be making me feel anxious, but they are, or I don't even know why I'm feeling anxious. I'm just feeling anxious all the time. That's where you're going to see maybe those longer terms effects, physically with our physical health and with our mental health.
Okay. And then really quick, I just wanted to know what's a healthy way to deal with like the immediate feeling after you get a bad grade or you fail a test? Because I know both me and Avnita have got like grades we weren't that proud of before, and it's kind of like an immediate sensation and it can take a toll to like how you feel about yourself, how knowledgeable you are on the topic. So I wanted to know what's a quick like thing that you can do in that immediate moment.
Yeah. Well, I think one, like we kind of talked about, acknowledge it. Like it's okay to say, like, oh gosh, I'm really disappointed right now. I didn't do as well as I thought I was gonna do. I think when you start to go into the negative self-talk of like, oh, I thought I was really good at this and maybe I'm not, or I'm feeling really stupid because I didn't get this grade. It's being able to then stop that, acknowledge that first of all, not every thought we have is fact. So our brains think a lot of different thoughts every day. And so not every thought and not every feeling you have fits the situation. So being able to kind of reflect, I think it's pausing is so important, being able to pause and just reflect on what is the thought that I'm having right now? What is the feeling I'm having right now? And does it fit the situation at hand? Because no, feeling disappointment when you get a bad grade, that's okay. I mean, like that I would say that falls into that normal, like you feel a little bit disappointed. I studied, I prepared. I wasn't expecting to get this bad grade. It's when it turns to that immediate like, oh gosh, I didn't do enough or I'm stupid or I'm these things, to be able to pause and say, that's not helping me right now. This thought, I need to take a step, I need to pause and take a step away from this and recognize that that is not a true fact, that I am able to pull this grade up. It's one grade, it doesn't define who I am, and then be able to move on to the next thing. And I think the other piece that I talk to clients about a lot, which is I do think is really helpful when you're thinking about anxiety and different things like that, is moving towards your values. How do I acknowledge the thought and the feeling that I'm having, and then make a decision to move towards what's important to me. Because sitting there and dwelling on that isn't going to do anything for you. And so it's okay, I need to now move on to the next thing, or I need to study the next time. And that's okay. We're going to let this go because it's not going to destroy my grade. It's not going to be the end all be all. It doesn't define who I am. And so I'm going to make a choice to move towards my values.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that because I know like most teachers are like, "Oh, it doesn't define you, like one grade doesn't define you." But like in the moment, I'm just like so like defeated. I feel like I studied this much and I get this grade. But like
Mhm.
I feel like over time that like it just passes that feeling and
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Okay, I just need to study for this next test and do good and then I can keep an A." It's just like moving forward with that mindset instead of like
Yeah.
dwelling on that.
Yeah, that is really important. And I like what you just said. Like it does. Our emotions, every emotion that we feel, it really only lasts about 60 to 90 seconds. But why it feels like it lasts so much longer is because then we start attaching meaning to all of it and we attach thoughts and meaning and then it starts to spiral. So if you're really able to acknowledge, like, think about your thought like a cloud or you're feeling like a cloud and know that it's going to move on, it will move past. You just have to kind of watch it, acknowledge it, and watch it move on without judgment. Because when you start placing judgment on all those thoughts, then it starts to become this self-belief that we have about ourselves. And that's where you don't want to go. Being able to say, like, okay, like you said, I am disappointed, and that's okay. And now I need to take a step to move forward with the next thing.
Mhm. I think that's all we have. Nikita, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to ask one last question.
Yeah.
So, what would you say are some resources or first steps that a student who is struggling but doesn't know where to start can take?
Yeah. I would say first of all, Olentangy has a ton of great resources right at the school. So, you guys have wonderful school counselors. If there's someone that you need to talk to, I think you start with your school counselor and just kind of say, like, this is where I am. Every high school has a school social worker at the building and a mental health specialist at the building. So being able to access those supports, the social workers and the mental health specialists are there every day too. So even just stopping by their office and saying like, "Hey, I'm, having a hard day today." Those things they're okay. And then, I think there's a lot of great apps too. Then I'm not going to be able to think of them off the top of my head, but if you just do some like research on like what are practicing mindfulness, because what's a mindfulness app that I can have and practice a mindfulness exercise every day, it's going to then teach you. Mindfulness is something that I encourage all my clients to practice too because it's so simple and it takes, 1 to 2 minutes every day of just practicing. How do I bring myself back into the present moment? How do I allow myself to just stay present with where I am right now without placing judgment on it? And learning some of those skills, I think, are really good skills to have that can help you in other areas too. So I would say really connect with some of the resources even that Olentangy has right there at the schools because there's a lot of great resources right there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Well, oh, sorry. Similar to like the mindfulness thing, one thing I do every day or like try to do every day is like get exercise, like take a walk and like go to the gym or something.
Yeah.
And I find that like that really like helps take my mind off of it. And like just exercise like improves your physical well-being, which
Yep.
can also like help your mental health in a way.
100%. Exercises are great. And walking, even if someone's like, well, I don't love to exercise. I mean, exercise is a great thing, and walking, like
Mhm.
walking, even just the repetitive like steps is actually really calming to the nervous system. So walking is a great, great way to calm your nervous system. I think that's a really, really great thing to add into that is exercise and just getting outside too. Like again, putting your screen down, getting outside, enjoying the weather's turning, so starting to like try to get out when the sun's out. I know today is not a great day, but hopefully spring will be here soon.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all we have.
Okay.
Um,